Questions for reflection. The author of the letter to the Hebrews, writing to Jewish believers, is describing worship under the covenant the Lord made with Israel, his chosen people. The one through whom he intended to reveal himself to all the nations. The Levitical priesthood had a special role in the worship of the Jewish people. Only the high priest was permitted to enter the Holy of Holies and offer sacrifice to atone for and receive pardon for the sins of these people. These sacrifices needed to be offered continually because the high priest was himself a sinner. Now that Christ has come, a new order of worship has begun. He is the perfect high priest, free from sin. He is also the Lamb of sacrifice. But his blood, voluntarily offered to redeem us, is a sacrifice once and for all, never needing to be repeated. Every ministerial priest, that is, every ordained priest in the Catholic Church, enters into the high priesthood of Christ. We use the Latin term in persona Christi, which means in the person of Christ. They are serving in the person of Christ. At every Holy Mass, it is Christ himself who is both priest and sacrifice. The one-time offering of Calvary is made present, and each one of us enters into the greatest mystery of the Christian faith when we participate in the Holy Mass and receive the Eucharist, the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus. Do we understand what really happens at every Holy Mass? Let the music sound for God, sings the great Hebrew minstrel named David. His psalms are the very core of Christian worship, recited at every Holy Mass and forming the framework for the daily liturgy of the hours, the breviary, prayed by every cleric and religious in the world, and increasingly by the lay faithful. Reciting, singing, memorizing these exquisite hymns of praise, especially over a long period of time, has a profound effect on the Christian believer. By grace, we enter into the very worship of heaven. They come back to mind and to heart throughout the day. And unlike too much music used in the liturgy these days, which is centered on us rather than God, the Psalms extol God and direct us to Him, not to ourselves. If we are mentioned, it is only in the context of repenting for our sin, acknowledging our need for Him, and turning back to worship Him. Now that's good music for worship. Do we read and pray the Psalms of David? When we are invited to offer the response at Holy Mass, do we listen to what is being said or sung? This short excerpt, taken from the 3rd chapter of the Gospel of St. Mark, is the response of the friends of Jesus, when after healing, delivering many from demons, and instructing the massive crowds who followed him, he came home. He is out of his mind. Imagine, here is the second person of the Blessed Trinity, the Word through whom the whole universe was created, now incarnate and present among us. And not only did many of the religious leaders fail to recognize him, his friends accused him of being out of his mind. Another translation reads, beside himself. In the next verse, some scribes who had come from Jerusalem actually said he was possessed by the devil. This reaction continues today. Jesus has been raised from the dead. He is alive. He is the head of his church, and she is his body. He continues his redemptive mission now through the church, and we are members of his body. So it should come as no surprise to us when we face hostility for living and sharing the gospel and the teaching of the Catholic Church. In an age which has forgotten and in many cases actually rejected the Lord, the very hostility demonstrated against Jesus is being demonstrated against us. And yes, sometimes, even from friends and family. Persecution is one of the promises of the Bible. Jesus told us it would come. We live in a secularist, neo-pagan age. It is a difficult age. However, it is our age. Our task stretches out before us, and we have a duty to engage it. It will require every ounce of energy we have. However, we will not be exhausted, because it is just when we run out of our own energy that the energy of the living God begins to flow most freely in and through us. This is what we call grace. Are we willing to stand with the Savior and be accused of being out of our mind?